So I'm going to get started in about 5 minutes. I want to give everybody a chance to join in.
Sure.
So Aldo, just so you know, we're doing this as a joint meeting with our Health, Senior and Social Services Committee, because we felt that the community conversations presentation would be applicable to both committees. And so I spoke with them and asked if they would participate in this part of the meeting because they agreed that it was probably something that was relevant to their committee also.
Hang on. See if I can. There we go.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And Aldo, if you want to stick around after your presentation, I've been talking to the Kohler task force about that this might be something that we could help to try to stream into Kohler, which is a long-term care facility.
Mm-hmm.
And that this might be helpful, particularly because they've had some struggles with being locked down due to the pandemic.
Great.
And so, you know, hopefully we can have a discussion when during their part of the agenda about whether it may be something we could figure out how to get to patients or residents within the Kohler facility.
Oh, that sounds great. Yes, definitely. I'll stay. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Pleasure. Okay, so it is 6:30. I'm going to go ahead and get started. And
actually, Lynn, sorry to interrupt. Before
Sure.
you do, I just have to let everybody know that they'll remain muted throughout the presentation tonight, and there will be an opportunity to participate later on. To participate, you'll have to go to the participants icon at the bottom of your screen and raise your hand. And if you're on the phone, it's *6 and *9 to unmute. And just be on the lookout for me to send you an unmute confirmation.
okay, and just as a matter of, so Rebecca and Barbara will be the and maybe, I'm not sure whether their other new co-chair is going to join us, but as part of the combined meeting, they're going to be potentially unmuted during Aldo's presentation, just so we can make that go smoothly. So let's start with the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I see
Judy?
Judy is raising her hand.
And a second, please.
Lowell.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. So there is one change to the agenda. It lists Jessica Sanchez as the presenter from the Community Conversations. It's actually going to be Aldo Trevino. Did I pronounce that correctly, Aldo?
Yes.
Okay.
It's actually Cano Trevino, but that's fine.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Okay.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Aldo, and thank you for coming this evening. We really appreciate it. We appreciate that they've been doing things in terms of mental health and to help facilitate good mental health. And so I turn it over to you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank
you very much. And good evening to everybody. My name is Aldo Cano, and I'm a Community Outreach Coordinator for New York City's Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. Thank you, Community Board, for allowing me to speak this evening about our mental health outreach program. So our program is called COVID-19 Community Conversations, Mental Health, Equity, and Resilience, or 3C for short. As you know, the COVID-19 pandemic is a worldwide shared traumatic experience that has disrupted and affected our families, friends, communities. And to address the mental health challenges brought on by COVID-19 and structural racism, the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene is providing a free 1-hour informational presentation. And so participants learn about COVID-19's impact on mental health. For example, with a show of hands, how many of you have felt anxiety, stress during this time, right? With a show of hands, I have. So this is how distancing, confinement, and loss has affected all of us. We also talk about mental health disparities in communities of color. So it's very important for all New Yorkers to understand how certain communities were affected disproportionately. And this creates understanding, care, empathy, and improves our wellness of our community as a whole. We also talk about the effects of trauma, grief, and anxiety. So many of us have lost loved ones, and we are dealing with our grief, or maybe we haven't. So we talk about resources. We talk about how anxiety plays a part in our mental health and how we cope with anxiety. For example, if you can show me through the chat, right? I don't know if it's available, but we ask also people if you can show through the chat how do you take care of stress or anxiety? For example, I ride my bike, and I've discovered vegan cooking, for example. So if you like, you can share through the chat. I don't know if it's an option for everybody, but you can share how have you been dealing with care. How have you taken care of stress, anxiety? I don't know if that's available, but we also talk about coping skills and mental health resources available in New York City. So I'm going to share a link with you right now. It's a resource through the chat. And when you participate in our presentations, you will receive a list of resources via email and also through the chat during the presentation. So the one I'll share, it's NYC Well. It's a free, let me get the whole, it's a free confidential 24/7 helpline. It's staffed by professionals who can provide counseling and referrals. Let me just put it in the chat for you to see. Give me 1 second. There we go. There we go. So as you can see, so when our participants see they will be looking at information as we go through the presentation, and they will also receive a list through email of all the different resources that the City of New York has, and also other organizations that we share with our participants. And finally, we have a Q&A this is a Q&A section that can last from 15 to 45 minutes, and it's depending on the participation of the attendees. People ask questions about the presentation, people share their experience, so it's a very enriching event. So this presentation is 60 minutes to 90 minutes long. I've seen in some organizations, they schedule the presentation during their regular meetings in order to ensure that they have a good participation. So it's a virtual presentation. It can be scheduled any day of the week, including weekends. And we have slots to optimize our resources. So we go from 9:30 to 11, 11:30 to 1, 1:30 to 3, 3:30 to 5. Each session is facilitated with 2 presenters, and it's also available in Spanish, Cantonese, and Mandarin. And we ask each organization to guarantee between 10 and 30 participants just to optimize our resources. And just like this presentation, it requires a link. So we work with WebEx, but we can also work with the organization and work with your own Zoom account. So we can also work with that. Webcams are encouraged but not required. So we also have, just like this, a dial-in number. And the presentations that we coordinate with organizations are private. So you invite your guests to attend. We send you the link. But we also have presentations for the general public in Spanish and in English, and I will share those links with you. So if you're interested, want to check one of our presentations and register for one of them, these are open. Give me 1 second. These are open presentations that are offered through libraries, different community organizations, and that way you can participate if you don't belong to an organization. I always recommend coordinating a presentation privately with your organization, with your staff, with your constituents, and that way it becomes a community event where you share, because there's a 45-minute presentation, and then we have a Q&A that can go from 15 to 45 minutes. So it's very enriching. So that's pretty much my presentation in regards to the community conversation that we are offering. So thank you very much. CB8, thank you, Lynn, very much for coordinating our presentation. So if you're interested in scheduling a presentation for your organization, you can contact me and I will be happy to coordinate with you. I'll share my information on the chat as well.
So, Sheldon, Aldo, I think people are probably going to have some questions for you, but I have a big favor to ask you, if you wouldn't mind.
Not at all.
Shelton is our next speaker, and he's got an issue, and if I could have him speak and then you answer questions after he's done, if you don't mind, I would sure appreciate that. And I'm sure Shelton would also appreciate that. Oh. And Max, if you could unmute Shelton Haynes and Rebecca Seawright.
I do see him, and yes, would you like to have Rebecca Seawright go first?
Yes, please. And then right after her, if you wouldn't mind, Shelton.
Okay.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you so much.
Hi, well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening and to connect with each of you by Zoom. Yesterday morning, we all watched with hope for a brighter day and stabilization of our democracy during the inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. What a very special day.
Yes.
I am pleased to announce that Speaker Hastie has appointed me chair of the Assembly Women's Task Force. So we'll be holding hearings around the state on the Equal Rights Amendment to be added to our New York State Constitution. As many of you know, Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney is the lead sponsor in Washington for it to be added to the federal Constitution. Maybe that can become a reality now that we have both the House and the Senate. Additionally, Speaker Hasty appointed me to the Ways and Means Committee. Starting next week, we'll be hosting our budget hearings with state agencies and hearing their fiscal requests and concerns before a joint panel of the Assembly and Senate Finance Committee. At the beginning of session, a couple of weeks ago, we voted to pass state legislation that I was proud to co-sponsor to extend and expand protections for renters and small landlords facing financial distress as a result of the pandemic. We've been inundated in our district office with calls and emails from concerned constituents who've not been able to make their appointment for the COVID vaccine. We held a town hall on Zoom to address this. We have joined forces with Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer on a COVID vaccination task force to streamline the delivery of this life-saving vaccine in Manhattan. This week earlier, we wrote to the governor and to the mayor to establish a dedicated vaccine site on Roosevelt Island. Currently, the closest vaccination site is on Vernon Boulevard in Queens. Senior citizens and people with disabilities should not have to face a higher risk of exposure to COVID-19 and traveling on public transportation or other means to another borough. So we call on the mayor and the governor to address this oversight immediately. On a positive note, we're thrilled to hear that rapid testing site has been established at the former Roosevelt Island Library space. We're continuing to advocate for Kohler residents with the Roosevelt Island Kohler Task Force. And then very importantly, in the absence of Amalgamated Bank, I do sit on the Assembly Banks Committee, and we have been working with the State Finance Department and REAC, I know Shelton you're going to hear from next, to strongly advocate for a bank on the island. Amalgamated Bank has indicated that they're going to continue the lock boxes and try to be of help, but this is just something that's urgent and no community should be without banking services. Our storefront office on 79th Street is just responding to hundreds of calls and walk-ins regarding unemployment insurance, housing advice, access to food, and other critical resources at this time. We have a Tuesday free housing legal clinic and a no-cost notary service that we're offering to the public. We ask you to stop by on Thursdays from 12 to 2, where we have a free no-cost PPE giveaway. And again, we'll have our virtual town hall Tuesday coming up, featuring 2 physicians, one from Cornell and one from Northwell. So I ask that you please log on Tuesday to our town hall and stay connected with us and let us hear your concerns and how we can be of service to you. I see my former intern Rami on the Zoom here, and Trisha and so many Judy, dear friends, and it's great to join you this evening. Thank you, and have a great meeting tonight.
Thank you, Rebecca. We so appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And Shelton, if you're ready.
I've asked him to unmute.
Yes, I'm ready. I'm having a few technical difficulty at the moment, but I apologize. Thank you for inviting me, Lynn. It's a pleasure. We have a few of our staff here from REAC who regularly attend this. If I'm not able to, Jessica Cerrone is on, as well as Wanda Hada. They're part of our community affairs team. And again, they're very engaged. And I'm very excited about what they bring to the table. And you'll hear more about some of the initiatives that they will be a part of in the near future. Assembly member, also thank you for that quick overview of our testing site and your continuing support of Roosevelt Island. Our rapid testing site began yesterday. We were very excited. As the Assembly member mentioned, it's located at the old library. It is a great offering for the residents and the general public. It's a free COVID-19 rapid testing site. We're requiring pre-registration for those that attend the site. Testing is free, no insurance is required. One can get results in as little as 15 minutes or up to 24 hours, depending upon the volume. We're open Wednesdays through Saturday from 9 to 5 p.m. And so far, we've gotten pretty good reviews. It's a very easy process. We're hoping it's going to be a segue to help open up the economy. You know, we're going to be able to go out in the public more where people can test more. It's going to be part of a broader initiative across the state where we opening up these kind of pop-up testing sites. So I think one was used for a football game, I want to say 2 weeks ago in Buffalo, where they had, I think, 7,000 people tested. Worked really well. So we have that same type of ideology here. And it's a great resource. And again, we've gotten great reviews, so we're appreciative of that. Part of our community engagement, I've spoken about for a few months now, is changing how we approach some of our community initiatives. We hear the concerns. We want to figure out ways we can work differently with the community. So we started an initiative under Erica Spencer L's leadership, where we're going to be engaging several community groups on Roosevelt Island. The difference is we're going to just have collaborative efforts. We'll have Zoom calls. We'll have meetings where we have meaningful discussions and workable solutions. Our goal is to get it right and figure out different ways we can work with the community. So far, we started our first initiative, I want to say, in October, November, where we had the bike safety subcommittee. We got feedback and insight from some subject matter experts. We had some of our local officials on it as well. That was the first step of the process. After that, we sent a survey out, collected feedback, and got some great insight on that. The next part of that is to have subcommittees where we had volunteers tackle the issues. So each group will attack each issue. It can be bike safety, it could be education, it could be signage. And then after that, we'll figure out ways we can attack these problems collectively. So far to date, we've seen that as being a resourceful way to address things in a meaningful way we can engage all parties. One of the challenges we faced recently is the Manhattan Tram elevator. As those who live on Roosevelt Island have known that it has had several challenges where it would be out of service for periods of time. It'd be off and on, it'd be up and running one day and then off the next. We have an engineer on staff who did a deeper dive and worked with some consultants, and we found out that the elevator is far beyond its wear and tear. This is not part of the larger project. I'm talking about the elevator that's in existence now. As you know, we've had it offline for, I want to say, 3 to 4 weeks now, because again, it's beyond normal wear and tear and it cannot be repaired anymore to that extent. So we had to just order new parts, and I'm told it should be completed by late next week. We're asking everyone to be patient. We appreciate the patience that everyone has had so far. But again, just bear a little further with us, and we will have that project up and running. Segueing to our capital project, the Tram elevator. I believe Prince Shaw came last month and gave a quick overview of that. For those that aren't aware, that whole Manhattan side Tram elevator is going to get a complete overhaul. The renderings are great. I can send that around to the group. It's going to look like almost like an Apple store with the glass encasing of the elevator. The only delay that we have right now is the glass that we're getting is being shipped from Europe. And due to COVID-19, there may be some delays, but we expect the project to be complete by the end of 2021. So we're excited to report out on that. We also have our Motorgate project. There's been some concerns, and I've had some issues raised to my attention recently with that. That project was supposed to be finished in December of 2020. We've had some weather challenges and some other challenges as well with that project. It's in the last phase. It should be finished mid-February. That project included repairs and replacement of floor drains, a restriping of the parking spaces, new directional signage, a waterproofing system on the parking deck, ramps, walkways, and curbs. And we're excited that project should be over and done with by middle of February. So we're excited to report that. For those of you who have visited Motorgate, you might have seen the charging stations that we put on the fourth floor. It's a 3-part dual port system where it has 6 ports, for electrical charging on the 4th floor. We partnered with the vendor charge point. It is so far, again, some good reviews for that project, and we're excited for that project to be up and running as well. The former Octagon Comfort Station was constructed 20 years ago. We since renamed that field and comfort station the McManus Field and Comfort Station after our former chief, Jack McManus, who passed away last year. And we are proud to report that project is moving along really good. It's about 65% complete. It's slated to be completed in the summer of 2021. The upgrades for that project is field seating, security features, a lighting design, And I've seen I've actually visited the site a couple of times over the last few weeks. We're progressing really well. And I'm pretty sure the community at large will be very pleased with that project. Our Nellie Bly Girl Puzzle project is slated to be completed the summer of 2021. There were some initial delays that I have to report as the artist has some delays in Kentucky due to COVID concerns. We do see the project still being completed in the summer of 2021. We encourage everyone, and I'll send this out in a separate email, to visit thegirlpuzzle.com to get the latest project updates on that. But it is a fantastic project. We're very excited about it, and we're looking forward to that unveiling as well. Hope Memorial, that project was completed in December of 2021. We're excited about that project as well. That project came from Franklin Eleanor Roosevelt Institute and the Roosevelt Island Disabled Association. It's located in South Point Park. Due to COVID restrictions, that project opening is temporarily delayed. We're working on those logistics now to see if we can potentially do a virtual opening or just opening based on availability. But that project, again, it is a meaningful project. I remember when I first came to the island, I had several conversations with Jim Bates. We were very excited to have that project move forward. So it's encased right now, but the space is still open. So we're excited that project is almost closing out as well. Last but not least, I'd like to report out that our youth center is almost complete. We have an inspection, I believe, on the 28th of January from the fire department. After that, we need approval from DOB, and we hope to have that project up and running by mid to late February. It has been a long-standing project. We actually failed an inspection in December that kind of we didn't anticipate for our elevator shaft in the youth center. That's since been remedied, and we're excited again for that project to kick off. Any questions, comments, concerns?
So Shelton, I would like to, one of our committee members had an experience with the testing site, and Max, if you could unmute Brian, he's going to comment really quickly on his experience with the testing site. Brian, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I just had, sorry about that. I just had to unmute. Well, first of all, I mean, like, kudos to REAC. Having been testing for the last 10 months, luckily, living on Roosevelt Island, I have a car, so I've had to drive out to Queens or drive to Upper East Side to do testing. And I was really excited when I got a message from my building that REAC had, in partnership, I forgot what the clinic was, had opened up testing where the old library was. I registered like immediately yesterday, and I called over there, and they were like, yeah. I was like, well, what's the wait like? Because, obviously I work during the day and I work remotely from home. And they were like, well, come, there's not really a wait. You'll probably be in and out in 15 minutes. I kid you not, I was in and out in 7. It was very quick. It's right next to actually where my dog goes to doggy daycare. So, I mean, if you're familiar with pop culture there. So it was pretty convenient, in and out real quick. The girl there was really friendly. And then by the time I picked up my dog and I walked 15 minutes home, I had the results already as a text message. So it was great. I appreciate it. I had even talked to the girl and I said, well, how long are you guys going to stay here? And she says, well, it's a pop-up, we're here for at least 2 to 3 months, maybe longer. We'll find out, but I'm really excited. I appreciate it. I think that's definitely what the island needed. And I can't say enough, that how much I really appreciate it, and having something that I don't have to travel out of off the island to go get tested.
Thank you for that feedback. It has been a long-standing process, a collective effort. I appreciate the feedback. We collectively appreciate the feedback. Our team, and I sent a thank you email even this morning to our team. There were several components. We've been trying to get this up and running. I want to say, I think in July, we had a pop-up, mobile van that came. Ben Keeler's helped with that. We had another pop-up in December. But prior to that, we've been trying for quite a bit of time. We went through a procurement process. We went through OGS vendors to make sure that we had a fair process. And the team that we selected won the OGS process, the procurement process, for best value and best pricing. And again, it was easy, it was simple, and again, the need was there. So I know that Roosevelt Island has very passionate local residents. We heard you. We tried to work with you guys as best as possible within our parameters. And again, as we have those community outreach, please continue to speak up. We'll do everything we can within our purview. But and again, and what we can't do, we'll partner up with other entities to move forward. But we appreciate that feedback because again, that was the desired effect. And again, there's a pop-up. We're still looking at other ways to make improvements. So thank you.
So
Yeah,
Chelsea,
well,
I wanted
I'll leave it.
Oops, sorry. I wanted to let you know that Community Board 8 is going to put a link to the sign up website for you in order to help support the community and being able to get registered. So I did want to let you know that we're going to try to support you by that. I wanted to ask you really quickly if you're up for a couple questions.
Please,
I have some people that would like to ask some questions.
Certainly.
But it's up to you if you're up.
No,
for it.
I'm fine with that. One thing to add about the site, again, thank you for the feedback. We take all feedback, positive and unfavorable. The results, you can get them by a telephone call, an email, or a text message. And again, it's 15 minutes. The testing time takes 15 minutes. You'll get that, and it's very efficient. So please continue.
So Max, I see Lowell, Paul, and Trisha's hands up. If you could go unmute Lowell, please.
Sure.
Hi, I have a question. I'm Vice President of Local 1010 Pavers and Road Builders. We build most of the roads and infrastructure in New York City, the heavy infrastructure. And Roosevelt Island, we were there talking to the contractors, workers, Elite Green Builders. They did the decorative ornamental iron seawall, the new rails around the entire island. They drilled them into the stone bulkheads. And talking to the workers, we noticed some issues were up, and we put in a FOIA request. And it took a while to get that FOIA request. And when we looked at it, there was the obvious thing was that they were paying everybody mason tender rate. That's an interior rate and probably the lowest prevailing wage rate you can pay a worker. There was no iron workers paid, which is a much higher rate. There was no heavy laborers or dock builders. So I called this into Claudius Sutton at DOL, and he was looking into it. And I went to check on him on, I guess, back in January. And the problem is that because of COVID, they don't really have enough time to do the investigation. Now, the real problem is that the time of the FOIA request, the time of investigation, after 2 years, the workers aren't entitled to anything. And I was also wondering, like, who observes and writes down the prevailing wages? Because these are documents that the inspector's looking at every day.
Good.
Yeah, so, and also, I guess, in a nutshell, design build, that's allowed now. Jobs over 1.2. Most jobs there in infrastructure are non-union with local 1010. So, you're going to get a better contractor base. A contractor can't outbid a contractor that misclassifies workers.
Certainly. We have a capital projects and planning team. It's comprised of a mixture of our REOC personnel, and we also have a consultant owner rep firm, Lero. I'm not sure if you heard of them.
Yes, I'm very familiar. Right.
So, and then they've been with us for, I want to say, 1.5 years, almost 2 years. Again, there was a lot of evolution in that department, a lot of lessons learned. I've been here almost 5 years in April, rather. And with that, we have oversight of all of our projects to look at prevailing wage, to look at timesheets, to oversee all of our vendors. We hadn't had that my first couple of years when I came here, that level of detail, that level of expertise now. So we do have those checks and balances in place now. For the Seawall project, I believe we did have that. After this, you can kind of shoot me email, give you my information. I can follow up to see what other issues, and we can kind of iron those things out. But I'm pretty confident that we have those. I got to see the reports with our fiscal team, with our capital projects team. But again, doesn't mean that there aren't any wrinkles or issues in the process. So I'm open to exploring that further.
I have one more suggestion.
Please.
Oh, sure. So now New York City, in the new project labor agreement they did a great thing. And I was really happy. Local hire, and they hire people to zip code. Section 3 people that live in housing projects are welcome. We organize them into the union and we get them good careers. Maybe that's something we could do Roosevelt Island. I mean, having your residents there actually working on their own park, their own roads. Something to think about.
I appreciate the insight. My only caveat to that is, as we evolve, I'd like to make sure that it is we have subject matter expertise, and if they are qualified, and or if we have the ability to train them and make sure that they can be part of that, then certainly I think that'd be definitely worth exploring. We want to make sure that we don't compromise the integrity of any project, but we still are inclusive in doing so as well. So we're open to that feedback. And again, that's why we have these forums.
Okay, Max, if you could unmute Paul.
Thank you, Lynn. Shelton, thank you so much again also for the testing center. It's fantastic to have it here. People I know like us always ask for more, so here's one more request if you could make, please. Unfortunately, my son's school, I'm sure the same is true for many other people, they don't accept the rapid test. I don't want to use the wrong terminology for it, but the more extensive testing, which has to go to a lab, this facility doesn't do. And I wonder if you wouldn't know this necessarily today, but if you could ask them, please, and suggest that they give us that kind of testing as well, that would be tremendous. Otherwise, just it limits the use. So more requests, thank you.
And Mr. Krigler, it's finally good to put a face behind the emails. I think we have had some emails in the past, so good to formally meet you.
Nice to see you.
I've had some conversations with the providers again, and no promises. I'm not that person to give false expectations. But we've had conversations about what types of tests we have and further exploring those. The test we have right now, I believe, is a BioNex test, and don't quote me if I don't pronounce it the correct way. I believe it's about 90+% accurate, because some of the concerns you hear rapid tests, and you hear, I think the percentage initially was low. We'll kind of update our FAQs to kind of give more detail about that. But I think the PCR test I have had a couple of inquiries about that as well. We'll explore the options. Right now we have that in place, but again, it's worth the conversation. I actually had a conversation with one of the medical providers earlier today. And again, their Swift Emergency Medical Care is the provider we're working with. But thank you.
Thank you so much, Shelton. Thank you.
Certainly.
So Max, if you could unmute Trisha.
Hi, thank you. I just had a follow-up question to that, and then a separate question about the site. For my son, when we test him and he gets a rapid test, but if God forbid he gets a positive shows up, then they tell me that it gets sent for a PCR. It gets sent to then a PCR. Then it has to go to a PCR. So I'm confused what happens with Roosevelt Island if you do have a positive test, and is that just it, or does it get sent? Like, how does that? What's the connection there?
So all of our I don't want to misrepresent what the process is. From my understanding, everything we have goes to the Department of Health first and foremost at this part of our process, because again, we are a state entity with that. And then after that, there's follow-up discussions with the person's medical provider in terms of next steps. All we do is diagnose the test, and then they give recommendations to follow up with medical providers. That's as much as I know. Juan, Jessica, am I missing anything? Is there any other piece I missed with that? That's all I know with that part of that. If I have more, I can give more at a later date, but that's all I know is to follow with the medical provider.
Okay. I would definitely echo that. I think that a PCR should be available to Roosevelt Island. Absolutely. Sure. That's just, I mean, we've been tested, my family and I have been tested probably 10 times throughout the pandemic, and I've never heard of it not being offered at a site. And then the other piece to this is just, I'm curious about what REOC's conversations have been with the governor's office about getting a vaccination site on the island.
So that has been all throughout the state. I think I had a few conversations. Is the unfortunate part right now, and again, we control what we control, right? So everyone right now is wanting the vaccines. I mean, whether it's city or state. I had a conversation with Dr. Resnick even yesterday, and he explored the option. He was asking about collaborations because he was interested. I asked, I mean, before, I'm not a medical provider. That's obviously the chair that they hold their urgent care right there. So we'll make sure we're not duplicative in some of the efforts. And he's actually really trying to have that, his site being, his urgent care being a designated spot for that. With regard to the state is a bigger conversation because there's sites that are open, but not the availability of vaccines. So we've, had conversations with city and state officials. Letters been going out to all parties. I think some people on this Zoom right now have even reached out as well. But again, right now we have no definitive answers. We're all just advocating and trying to do our part. Right now, we're happy to get the testing part resolved. And again, that took months because there was so many intricate details that went into that. I don't want to make false promises and say we're going to have a vaccine portion right now. All I can know is we're all collectively trying. And as we know, we'll obviously update the public.
My only just kind of follow up to that is just that I appreciate all the advocacy. We've certainly been involved in that too. In my conversations with the governor's office, because I work in government affairs, and so I've been communicating with them on this too. It's been told to me that some of the advocacy, what the advocacy is missing, is some data points on just how vital of a vaccination site would be here. And in other conversations I've had with other groups like AHRC and other groups that are serving populations that just physically cannot go to the Javits Center or go to the Armory, that they are really very compelled. And I know you because you work in the state too, so you know that data talks, right? So
very much so.
I'm curious just if you could just speak a little bit more to the type of data that you're sharing with the governor's office and the type of data that you guys are advocating for. I just want to make sure that we're not just, sending out letters that are just like, hey, we should have one because it's Roosevelt Island, but instead we're really making the case that a quarter of this population is over the age of 65, that there are hundreds of people here with mobility issues, that these are the number of seniors that are receiving emergency food services. These are the people who are homebound at this point. I really would like us to make sure that we are really hitting those very clear data points here, because you know this, that's what the state responds to.
Certainly. So I myself haven't been the point of contact in terms of giving that specific data. We have an intergov team that we worked with. We have conversations with DOH. Our population is about 12,000. We have obviously a quarter of our population with regard to being elderly and disabled. We mentioned the need with Kohler. We talked about mobile accessibility issues, what have you. It is just, and again, if we had a site tomorrow, it'd still be the vaccine shortage also, and there's distribution, that whole ebb and flow also. So that was the last conversation I had, and I think it was actually earlier today, about that in the collective. Because I mean, if I'm being quite transparent, even our own staff, we have bus drivers, we have public safety officials, we have officers, we have youth center workers, we have Tram personnel that we can't even get those resources to also. So we're looking at it holistically, not just for that population, but Roosevelt Island as a whole, as a collective. So all of our conversations are looking at every touch point, not just the elderly, disabled, or and so on. And then you have, we also have schools on the island as well. So there's a whole collective effort, and each person has their stake in it. So we had to take a breath, take a step back, and looking at, and then having those conversations to say, okay, let's take a step back and look at all the resources that are needed. And that's part of the advocacy that we're trying to do also. So we're not there yet. I don't want to mislead you and say we have all the information. We're still collecting the data, but we hope to have some traction. Again, I've had some promising conversations, but nothing tangible to report today. So I don't want to misrepresent those facts right now, but I have been having those conversations.
No, I appreciate it. Obviously we all know that there's a shortage right now, but I also understand that, that there are many, you don't just open up a newspaper and see that there are a lot of expectations that more vaccines are coming. And so sure. I just want to make sure that we are properly in the queue in the appropriate way, and that everybody is very well aware of the need on Roosevelt Island. I think that Islanders and everybody are trying to be as patient as possible. So it's not that, it's not like anybody expects there to be an inoculation site tomorrow, but, when God willing, Biden announces that we're going to be getting X number of hundreds of thousands of more vaccines and that they're going to go straight to New York, would love to hear that. And by the way, an inoculation site is going to be on the island for this many doses.
Well, just know people are listening. So our pop-up site was a big deal in the state. It wasn't like, we were actually one of the first to do it. We're actually showing as some of the subject matter expertise and giving lessons learned in other state entities and things like that, such as Battery Park City and others. So we've had those conversations. We're very proud that everything we did, we went granular details. We had to, lessons learned, but we went through the whole process. And now other state authorities are modeling us. And then again, using commercial spaces all throughout the city. As I mentioned, I think the governor even mentioned in his state of state, it is a way to open up the city. And so I'll just say, those who live on the island, look at Nisi right across from the testing site, maybe a few yards rather. Imagine if Nisi said, okay, reservations at 10 o'clock, but you need to get tested first before you go there. And so you have a whole restaurant that's full of people who have passed the test, and you feel a little bit more safe, I would say. And they're looking at that holistically. As mentioned, they had a football game, they had the same thing. Not saying it's perfect. Obviously, vaccination, it goes hand in hand because, and it is the rollout process has not been smooth to date. But the good thing is we are now on everyone's radar. So we would not get the callbacks that we had before. We're getting them now. There's more interest. So that we're able to do this. We were kind of trend setting with that, and we're proud. We're very, very proud of that. So again, I don't want to make false promises, but we're really advocating. And again, we'll see what happens.
So thank you for those questions, Tricia. We really appreciate it. And while I have you and Jessica on, I wanted to talk briefly about Jane Swanson's presentation last month about the zero efforts on Roosevelt Island. And I want to thank Jessica personally for the efforts that you and RIAC have done to do that fantastic map. And that I think that that's such a great tool that we can use to go further. And Max, if you wouldn't mind unmuting Julia, who was part of that presentation last month, and then maybe Jessica so she can respond. But go ahead, Julia.
So a big thank you. I am Julia Ferguson, she, her pronouns, and I'm part of the Community Garden Board. Just really quickly, I want to thank RIAC for the 5 years, and Jessica knows well, the 5 years that we have been able to work with NYC Compost, funded by DSNY, and that thanks to our very hyper-local Queensbridge community composting site done by Big Reuse. We have on Roosevelt Island, our islanders have composted over 100,000. So over 100,000 pounds, and that was before this year. Now with COVID, when so much was cut back, we have a volunteer Hacky Compost Collective, which is done by volunteers working with Big Reuse. They still compost all our food scraps. So since Biden put us back into the Paris Agreement yesterday, composting is one of the top 100 solutions to reverse global warming. I just want to remind everybody, and I'll put it in the chat, that next week there will be a community input meeting for the Queensbridge site, which is under the bridge. You all may know that hashtag Save Our Compost, the site has been working hard since last year, and then there were hearings and town meetings in December. So we're working very hard to save the composting sites that belong in public parks, and they belong to everyone. Roosevelt Island has benefited. I've seen with Jessica, it's been a game changer for us to get the compost back into the community, into school gardens, into our tree beds on Roosevelt Island Day. So I'll put the link in the chat, and I'd like to encourage anyone from RIAC or anyone else to please attend this meeting next Thursday, January 28th. It's a virtual scoping meeting for the Capital Improvement Project at Baby Queensbridge Park. And we want to urge parks to include a long-term lease for our Big Reuse compost site. Really will make a difference. These are two, Big Reuse and Lower East Side Ecology, are two of the major composting sites in the city. So that's all, and I want to thank RIAC, because without you guys, we couldn't have done any of this.
We appreciate the partnership, and thank you so much.
So Max, I've got Billy Freeland with his hand up, and I think he's got something to contribute to the conversation.
Yep, thank you. So thank you, Julia. I volunteered recently with the Hacky Compost Collective. It was really, a great time. I encourage anyone who has time to volunteer with them on Saturday mornings or early afternoons. And I also testified about this issue when the City Council had a hearing on it. So I've studied this somewhat. A couple things. One is whether doing a resolution now or perhaps having its own discussion, Lynn, in the future. I think it would be really great if this committee takes up this issue. Parks essentially was going to evict Big Reuse from this site under the Queensboro Bridge. My understanding, I think, of the latest is that they've extended their permit another 6 months. So they'll still be operating these next 6 months. So there's time for us to lend our voice as a community board, perhaps in partnership with the community board on the Queens side of the bridge. But I think this is a really important issue. I mean, for those who don't know composting well, this is huge for the environment. Food that goes into landfills, it takes forever to decompose. And when it does, it emits methane, which is 84 times more harmful than carbon dioxide. It's also food security. issue. Composting, you can put the scraps back into the ground and you can replenish, and it really helps with a lot of food insecure communities when you compost and replant those food scraps. So I think this is an important issue. I'd love to see the committee get behind it. I know, Tricia, this is a parks issue, but the park space is on the Queens side, so I don't know if this would be a Roosevelt Island and Parks dual committee issue, or just Roosevelt Island because of our connection to the Hackey Compost Collective, which operates in the cold months, operates near Motorgate, near the Food Town, right where the Green Market is. But I thank you for raising this, because it is a really important issue. It's adding it's a great part of the Roosevelt Island community, and I hope we can support it however we can as a community board.
Max, if you could unmute Tricia and keep Billy unmuted, and I just want to have a quick conversation on whether this is something that we want to reach out to the Queens Community Board to maybe do a joint resolution with them to encourage that the big reuse find a permanent home under the bridge. So I just want to get your ideas from Parks, whether you think that that's a good direction for us to go into, and whether we should plan for our next meeting to see if we can have the Queens relevant community board engaged with us.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I'm 100% supportive of this. Let's absolutely do it. Lynn, I think it's most important to get Islanders' voices on this, so it will follow your schedule, and Parks can hold it jointly with you. I also think that getting Queens involved is great. So just let me know if you need help with that, but we're 100% on board.
Okay, I think that that's the best next step, and thank you, Billy, for bringing that up. And I think if we could do something joint with our Queens partner, that may help really solidify the communities, and plus have more of a voice when we reach out to the necessary parties in terms of wanting to go forward with it. So thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Shelton? And do I have any elected officials' offices that would like to speak? If you could raise your hand, I'd sure appreciate it. Otherwise, I'd like to move the agenda forward to the Roosevelt Island bike lane, and hopefully, Shelton, you'll be able to stay on just a little bit for that discussion. Sure. And if Max, if you wouldn't mind unmuting Paul for a minute. And so I received an email follow-up from Colleen Chattergoon. And so what I wanted to say to you, Paul, is that I'm super excited because we've been reaching out to DOT for quite some time, and this is the most progress we've made so far. And I know you find everything moving very slowly, but I just want to say that from what I've seen, this is progress, that they are actually costing out and evaluating surfaces to put over the bike lane. So again, I want to thank you for your advocacy on this, and just double check to make sure. I haven't heard anything new other than that they are moving forward to cost out surfaces.
I've heard nothing else either, and thank you very much for the kind words. I'm hopeful we'll get it done very soon.
Yeah, so working with government processes like this tends to take time, and this is actual movement, so I'm kind of excited about it. So we will keep engaging with them and keep kind of moving that forward. So I just wanted to let everyone know that that is moving forward. I know that Paul would like to see it move forward quickly or faster, but it definitely is moving forward. And then what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, Julia, because I kind of took some of Aldo's time from him, and I know some people may have had questions about his presentation on the community conversations. If you all don't mind, I'd like to go back to that. And if anyone has any questions about the COVID community conversations, could they raise their hand? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Oh, Shelton, could you unmute Shelton, Max?
Try again. There you go.
I apologize, Lynn. I don't want to cut my time short. I do have to leave. But I do appreciate the invite. Mr. Lowe and Teresa, if you could provide them my email information, I can shoot you guys an email. We can continue that dialogue as well. Billy, I think I owe you a phone call, so looking forward to that email shortly. And Julia, again, thank you for the kind words. I leave you in capable hands. Our team is ready and able to answer any questions or provide any feedback. And again, Paul, thank you as well. For those of you who haven't officially met, hello, and thank you for having me. We appreciate the collaboration. And Lynn, thank you so much, obviously, for the support and inviting us to this meeting. So we'll keep this conversation going.
Definitely appreciate that you all could make it, and it definitely helps us get a better understanding where we are with projects, how things are moving forward. I know my understanding of the top concerns are the bank that was the testing site, so now that is looking like it's moving forward well. And then people getting inoculations, and I know that that's a big concern of yours. And so we'll, continue to move those things forward. And I know that that you all have been working really hard on figuring out some solutions for the bank issues. And hopefully next month we can get another report on what's going on with the Zero project, and Cornell and Jessica can maybe give us an update on that. So we'll hopefully talk more about that next month.
Thank you so much. And Jessica, if you can follow up with Lowell and Teresa and the information, so we can have continued dialogue about what topics that they mentioned as well. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Yeah. So the next on our agenda is the Kohler Task Force. And
actually, I see we have a hand from Billy, actually, real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Billy, I didn't see that. Go ahead, Billy.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry about this. I was just wondering, do we have Julia's contact information in case we want to follow up? I wasn't sure if we did.
Oh, that's a great point. Actually, I can get you Julia's contact information. If there's anyone else that needs it, let me know. I know that Billy's very interested in the reuse. And
yeah, great. Thank you.
So actually, Max, if you could unmute Julia, because she's going to give us an update on the Kohler Task Force.
Sure. She just is. Oh, there she is. Go ahead, Julia.
Thank you so much. For those of you who don't know, the Kohler Task Force was set up by a group of electeds and housed under the Community Board 8 in June of last year. It was set up to identify issues of concern, obtain timely responses from health and hospitals, facilitate oversight of Kohler for members of the committee and elected officials, and ensure healthcare workers or residents who speak out are shielded from any retribution. In the June letter, electeds stated specifically that because many of the Kohler's residents and staff are people of color, they were particularly concerned about any disparities in care or treatment. The task force met 6 times monthly in 2020 from July to December. Elected representatives, so wonderful, were present. Many of them are on this call. There were 4 residents who attended quite regularly to speak and give an update about their lives, and this proved to be very important. Cornell Tech and other organizations spoke about any efforts. And then in December, there was news that the city might reopen and bring COVID patients back into the Rehabilitation Nursing Care Center. But since the joint letter of December 19th was presented to Kohler administration by electeds at the Rally for Nursing Home Lives Matter, no new COVID wing or patients have been reintroduced into Kohler. That has not happened. During this second wave, the COVID-19 virus has continued to enter Kohler nursing home, the nursing home via the staff. And so rapid testing is now being conducted once a week on staff, in addition to twice a week regularly testing for them. In the weeks following the holidays, 4 residents tested positive and 9 staff. And then in the week of January 9th to 15th, 0 positive residents, but 12 positive staff. The residents continued to be tested twice a week. All but 2 of the 22 units have had to be put back into a lockdown, a kind of quarantine on their units. Some residents are able to get out front a little bit if there is someone available to take them to get outside. They were able to begin vaccines in early January, and they had the first round. And then residents on Roosevelt Island and groups provided education resources regarding the vaccine. And I can actually make this available to others if interested. These education resources were sent in from Dr. Yuchi Blackstock, nationally known physician in Brooklyn. She runs Advancing Health Equity. And so we sent those in to the administrators who thanked us. A second round of vaccines was administered Monday, January 18th. And also that was for people who hadn't taken it yet. Task force members have been working together, communicating about ongoing protocols, and in the meetings in 2021, H&H Kohler representatives will be attending the task force meetings, which will be an important change. These regular meetings are set to reconvene next week and also early in February. So that's all the news from the Kohler task force.
So one of the things, and the reason why I asked Aldo to stay on, is I had requested and had the opportunity to actually sit in on one of the community conversations presentations. And what I thought was really important and potentially valuable in terms of trying to do some outreach into Kohler Hospital was the fact that they do talk about different levels of how the pandemic experience, and just generally other experiences that people of color have that impact their mental health states. And I thought that that part of it was super valuable and may be helpful to some of the residents at Kohler, and that it could be something that we might try to figure out how we can do an outreach into the hospital, into the facility. It was a hospital a whole lot longer than it's been a facility. So I keep struggling by reprocessing what they're called, what it's called. So I ask everybody's forgiveness and indulgence, but they're residents, it's a facility, and we want to do what we can to do as much to help them under these very difficult circumstances. So I just wanted to put that out there as something that I thought what Julia did in terms of engaging them with that professional about the immunization and all that she had to say. I think it was very helpful in convincing some of the residents. And I think that putting them in a situation where they're connecting with each other differently, which is what I think that the community conversations could do, could be very helpful. Max, could you unmute Aldo for a minute so that he can respond?
So while we're waiting for that to happen, Aldo, we can put you in touch with different individuals who are connected. And what Lynn mentions, the residents that we have been in touch with, mental health is a top priority right now, just like for all of us, but magnified because of much more confinement than we know, right? We're all suffering from mental health challenges, but the resident friends that we have made in the last few months are confined to very much smaller places, and day rooms and other areas are closed off, like chapel and stuff. So yeah, it's a good idea. So go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We have worked with other organizations where there's this type of confinement, and also we've found there are also challenges to some people trying to get and use technology. So we can work together, find a way to be able to help out, to be able to connect this. And actually it's a very practical logistics. It's not very difficult. We just need to organize with whoever's coordinating on the other side, and I think it's definitely we can do it. There's a lot of different creative ways that I've seen organizations do this with those challenges where, as I mentioned, technology might be a challenge, use of technology, the confinement, etc. So let's definitely talk about this. I'm just thinking about the Q&A at the end, which can go from 15 to 45 minutes. It's so enriching when people start to talk about their feelings. Part of that helping with the anxiety is actually talking about it. So that conversation is great. Finding out, that other people are going through the same issues really helps you lose that isolation internally. So definitely let's connect and talk about getting this ready. And definitely, I only need a week's notice and we can just move ahead. And of course, we'll, let's talk about it and let's do it. Definitely.
I'm a resident on the island, but we'll put you in touch with the right people. Judy Birdie is there with Kohler Auxiliary. She's in the hospital a lot. We also have we have other people who are in the hospital. So we can put you in touch with administrators as well as Cornell Tech. They do an online course inside. So we'll do the connecting for you behind the scenes. And
great. And we have great presenters. They are part of our team of mental health first aid trainers. Lynn is very familiar with them because she organized many presentations for the community board. So and the area. So very experienced presenters. So it's going to be. I would definitely like to work with you with that, or with Judy.
Max, could you unmute Judy? Okay.
Already unmuted.
Hi. I was at Kohler. Since I run the auxiliary, I was there yesterday. And I'm happy to say 80% of the residents took the shot, the vaccine, which is a fabulous number and a good number of staff. I didn't get it, but the executives were very happy that so many of the residents, a lot of them took the first shot yesterday, and then the pharmacy will be back in 3 weeks to just finish up. But they were very thrilled that so many of the residents came through and they really wanted it. They were enthusiastic about getting it. Kohler does have an excellent psychiatry staff. And the sad thing is, Kohler is far from alone. I have friends who are at other long-term care facilities, fancy ones with fancy names and fancy neighborhoods and fancy fees. And they are just as miserable as people in a public institution. And it's sad because the other places don't talk about it. They just tell the families you can't come and that's it. And I mean, Kohler is an example because we're a public institution. Aldo, have you had conversations with people in other long-term care? I mean, we have Seaview, we have Susan McKinney, we have Carter. They're all long-term care with lockdowns. Have you and your associates have other organizations talk to them about the situation with the lockdowns?
Well, in terms of bringing presentations to long-term care, yes, we have. And again, we've been, this was when we were able to bring 10 people together into a conference room. I don't know right now what are the guidelines, but so we were able to bring a few people with social distancing and put a projector up there and then project the WebEx presentation, and then there was a monitor in the site that was helping out with the Q&A. So there's, as I was mentioning, there's a lot of different creative ways that we can do it. People can dial in through their phones and just listen to the conversation. So So there's different ways we have. So there's smaller groups. They're small groups. So, and that's fine. So we can work with that.
Hopefully the latest lockdown is supposed to end either the end of this week. Some of the units are already off lockdown. They're just so terrible. It's so terrible to be locked down. I mean, as the auxiliary, we give things out. We keep getting things, whatever they need. But, people just want to be able to go down and have a smoke without having someone escort you, etc. But they still go out to the garden, weather permitting. So that as long as it's a staff member to take them.
Yeah. So we can do something, and definitely we can work with that, and we can do like let's do a pilot, a tryout. Let's see how it works. What's the response in terms of the seniors or whoever is there, and then move from there and find out if we can organize more of those.
I think there are many people who don't participate in with the groups that we know of that really need the help because they're quiet. They don't complain. The older people, they don't complain. They don't kvetch as much. And they may need more help in their quiet way than the people who are young and active and really are gung-ho for this. So I'll speak to you offline, okay?
Okay, Judy. Thank you.
Now, does anyone have either questions for Aldo, Julia, or Judy? Okay, so I'm going to move the agenda forward, and in old business, I'm going to go back to something that was super old business years ago that just came up yesterday in our community board meeting, and that was the helicopter issues. Many people on Roosevelt Island over the years have complained about helicopter issues. Apparently, it's become a big issue again. And Gail Brewer is setting up a task force to discuss this. So I just wanted to, under old business, touch upon that because they are addressing it. The city is addressing it again. And so I just wanted to let people know that that was going on. And does anybody have any new business that they'd like to discuss?
I see Edwin and Sharon.
Yes. Can you unmute them?
Yeah. Hi. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Max. And I really appreciate going back to this old business because the helicopter issue has been just extraordinary. My understanding is that the helicopters are supposed to fly over the water, but instead they're flying over Roosevelt Island. I don't know if you have any other additional information in terms of regulations vis-a-vis their flight path, but my understanding is it's supposed to be over the water. I know that there's a separate issue with them hovering over Central Park for Instagram photos. But specifically for Roosevelt Island, they've been flying straight over Roosevelt Island as opposed to flying over the water.
Well, and my understanding is that it's not just that she's looking at it as a bigger picture than just some of the Roosevelt Island complaints. And I also think that that Carolyn Maloney has voiced some issues about it because her office has received complaints about it. So I believe that they're readdressing, it's this whole Instagram picture thing that people are doing with the helicopters. And so I think that they're setting up a task force to revisit it. And so I just kind of wanted to, because it is something that's come up on Roosevelt Island in the committee over the years, and it's come up again. And so I just wanted to let everybody know that it is being addressed again. So,
and Will, our district manager, says that he's on the task force.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Max.
Oh, I said that Will just let me know that he's on the task force if they want to, if anyone wants to send him.
Okay. So if I think that's it, unless somebody else had another piece of new business. Can I get somebody to motion to end our meeting? Thank you, Judy. Can I have that seconded?
Oh, Billy and Barbara.
Right. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Really appreciate it. Great seeing you. And Aldo, thank you for your time. Jessica, thank you for your time. Thank you, Rebecca and Barbara, for joining and partnering with us on the mental health issue. I really appreciate that. And looking forward to seeing everybody next month. Thanks so much.